Hi, my name is Matthew Hoyle. I'm an alumni of the Political Science and International Affairs program at the University of North Georgia. Now I'm a practicing attorney in downtown Dahlonega with Southern Venture Title Company.
Matthew, why did you pursue a political science degree?
Good question. I actually decided I wanted to be an attorney as early, I believe it was second grade. And so making that decision pretty early on, I started looking at programs across the state for pre-law. And in that process, I found UNG. Looking into it, their facility, their staff were all top notch, and at the time were pretty close to first place in the state. So even though it was close to where my high school was, it was a pretty clear choice that that was where I needed to be. So I chose the program, and it's worked out great for me.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your law practice and what you're doing?
I sure can. So when I graduated law school, I had one goal, and that was to be self-employed. In law, you have your big law market, which are big law firms in metro areas, and then you have independent attorneys that work in smaller towns. And I thought back, where have I worked? Where have I been in life that I really loved? And I thought I loved Dahlonega, Georgia. So looking at Dahlonega, I thought, what kind of area of law can I practice there? And I knew real estate was a good option. So I moved here, networked with the group of people I had met during college that were in the legal community, and ended up being able to get a group of partners together to form Southern Venture Title Company. And so we close real estate for different people with their transactions. We also form companies and manage LLCs, anything business or property related.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about during your undergrad what courses and opportunities you had that were beneficial to where you are now?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The political science department at UNG was, and I'm sure still is, absolutely phenomenal. The number one thing I would urge students to do is go talk to your professors. Being a college professor myself, I can say that when I have students that don't ask me to use all my resources, it's frustrating. Here's what you get when you ask the political science department to help you. You get years of wisdom, which is invaluable. You get connections that these people have made by living in this community far before and after you will be at UNG, and you get the goodwill of these people. I know if it hadn't been for going and seeking out the advice of people in the political science department, I never would have found my internship. So one was the connections with the staff. That was really unanticipated but warmly received. Another great thing about political science that I would urge students to take advantage of are your American government classes, especially if you want to do what I did, which is go to law school. The American government classes, and really anything that gives you exposure to statutory law, is going to train your brain so well for this field. You can go on to work in legislature, you can go to work as a legislative aide, you can work as a paralegal, you can close real estate, you can run a company. There are so many valuable jobs, and I think one of those key skills to start developing in your undergrad career is how to be a really good critical reader.
Okay. Can you tell us about what was most, you've already talked about just so many great things about the Political Science International Affairs program at UNG. Can you tell us about what was most meaningful in your time as an undergrad?
Sure. So I think the most meaningful project I had during my entire undergrad at UNG was my senior capstone course. That was taught by Maria Alvo. She was a great professor, first and foremost, but she also exposed me to something that really sparked a passion in me, which is researching a topic to the point of becoming an expert on it. And essentially, your senior capstone process or project when I was in school involved researching a topic of your choosing and then giving a presentation to the entire political science department, which when you're 21, 22 years old can be pretty daunting. But through Maria's class, I had this wonderful opportunity to dig into research from legislation passed in the 1980s. I spent months digging into it, and it was such a rewarding feeling to be able to go in front of a group of professionals with my own material and give a really thorough presentation. Not only be able to present it, but to be able to follow up to their questions with really meaningful answers. That meant a lot, and I carried that skill forward into law school. Law law school is based on the Socratic method, so if you're thinking about going, you should probably know you may have to stand up in front of 60 or 160 of your classmates and look like a fool, or really intelligent, your choice. But my experience giving those presentations with my capstone class really prepared me very well for that experience, both in law school and my MBA program, so I highly recommend that.
Can you tell us a little bit about, so you talk about your capstone, how it was really helpful. Were there any other surprising classes or surprising opportunities that in your degree?
Yeah, so surprising classes. I was very surprised by American government. I know I've harped on it, but again, your high school civics class and college level American government are two completely different things. And I highly recommend it just for being an American citizen. In terms of other things that surprised me, I took a lot of the pre-law classes, obviously, because that was my concentration. I never imagined how well it would prepare me for law school. I took criminal law, constitutional law, a lot of these classes with a wonderful gentleman. His name was Dr. Reese. And those classes really put me ahead in law school, and that's something I will be eternally grateful to UNG for. Going into your first year of law school and mentally having the background of already having completed the first semester puts you head and shoulders, leaps and bounds above everyone else. And if you do choose to go to law school, you'll understand those rankings in your first year have a pretty profound effect on the rest of your career after graduation. And like I said, I'm just very grateful to the program for knowing that and putting me in a position to do my absolute best.
Okay. What about in your undergrad? Were there any new perspectives or new ways they taught you to look at the world that you were surprised about or just really benefited from?
Yeah, I'd say the number one thing that the political science and international affairs taught me about looking at the world was to actually look at the world. You can't get by just looking at the United States from day to day. When I was going through school, it was globalization. It was this internationalization of pretty much every aspect of our lives, from digital to trade to media. And the political science program at UNG was my first real exposure to those trends, and not just exposure, but expert exposure with people that had studied it for decades. And I'm very grateful for that experience.
Okay. And then finally, what would be your advice to students who are in the program now or thinking about pursuing a pre-law political science degree?
Okay, well, first I'll start with my sort of smaller area, which is pre-law. If you want to be a lawyer, I highly advise taking any class that ends in the word law. You're going to get this specialized knowledge that you need to succeed your first year. And I can promise you, if you take the classes that UNG offers in their pre-law program, you will be head and shoulders above most of the people in your first year plan of study at law school. For the whole department, I think it's very important to look down the road at what your career goals are, which is something that I never really had to stop and think about it in undergrad because I knew I wanted to be an attorney from such a young age. But if you want to be a legislative aide, you need to look at the skills required of that. I need to know how to write statutes, or I need to know how to read them. I need to know how to make a persuasive argument. And there are certain political science classes that will cater to those desires and wishes. If you want to be a representative, you need to understand political boundaries, gerrymandering laws, and there are opportunities for that all in the political science and international affairs program. So the key is figure out what skills you need to be the best at your job, and then look at your course curriculum. I guarantee you there's something that matches up with what you really want to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Matthew.
Yeah.